It's day 4 of my 5-day for £5 budget challenge, and I'm trying to make pancakes for breakfast. That could be interesting because I have no eggs and no milk. So yeah, day 4, rules and parameters are in day 1 if you want to see those. I'm not going to repeat them. So I'm going to try and make some sort of pancakes for breakfast this morning, but I don't have any eggs or milk. So I'm going to try and blend some of this cooked rice to make a kind of rice milk type of thing, and banana to substitute for the egg. This banana is a disaster. I should have bought yellow bananas. I bought green bananas thinking they would ripen, and I put them in the fruit bowl. I've tried everything, covering them, put them in a paper bag, put them with other fruit. They're just not ripening. In fact, I think they almost look like they're more green now than they were when I bought them. But never mind, I'm going to cook with it anyway. So I'm going to blend up the banana and the rice. 75 grams of cooked rice, which is equivalent to about 25 grams of uncooked rice. Just for the... Well, that's a bit more than I said I was going to put in there. Just for the record, I am being very careful not to miscalculate the rice. The nutrition values on the back of the pack of rice give you the values for cooked rice. And in previous videos, I've undercalculated the calorie value of rice because I was basing it on 1 kilo of dry rice, but using the cooked rice weights on the back. There's actually more calories in a bag of rice than I thought there were, is the short version of that. And I'm just going to add enough water in there to cover that. And now I use the hand blender to blend that together. Okay, well, I don't imagine that's very milky, but it kind of looks the part, doesn't it? Let's have a little taste of that. Yeah, well, not great. So the banana, oh gosh, I really don't like green bananas. Hopefully it'll be okay when it's cooked. Not going to save the peel. I'm not going to try and cook banana peels this time. If you've got good recipes for banana peels, then do let me know in the comments. Okay, hopefully that's gloopy enough that will take a little bit of flour now, and I can make some kind of thick pancakes. Just about 35 grams of flour. Doesn't seem like a lot of flour, does it? I think I might double that. 70 grams of flour. Pinch of salt because it's batter. I'm making this up as I go along. I don't know if you can tell. I'm just going to put a tiny little splash more water in there, just to loosen it up a bit. That's better. Okay, I've got about 1 gram of lard in the pan there, just to stop that from sticking. And we'll just wait for that to come up to temperature. And there's my batter, which looks like it might work. Okay, well, let's have a go. This is self-raising flour, so it should have its own little bit of rise in there. And bear in mind, the first pancake's nearly always a disaster anyway. Turning it down a bit because I can actually smell that toasting on the bottom. I have a feeling it might be overcooking before I get to the point where I can turn it. Well, bubbles coming up through the top, that's usually a good sign. It's not too toasty on the bottom, so we'll keep it that way up for the moment. Okay, I'm going to try and flip that now. Possibly a bit early, but I can flip it back over and toast that side again. But it looks like it's setting okay. That's the main concern. I suppose a lot of that setting is actually coming from the flour cooking. Too pale, so I'm going to keep cooking that one while I get another one lined up. Now it might be that these won't toast up in the same way that a pancake would if it had egg in it, so I need to be careful about that I don't just burn them. Obviously there's no egg in here, there's no milk in here. Those two things have a tendency to create browning. There's rice in here which kind of resists browning, so it might well be that these are going to be slightly pale coloured pancakes, and that might be okay. That does actually feel like it's completely cooked. Pleased with the amount of bubbling I'm seeing here. Okay, I think it's time to flip this one now. That's better. Now it does feel like there's an uncooked layer in the middle of this one. I'm just going to let it cool a little bit and we'll open it up and have a look. Might be that I have to thin the batter down a bit and let it cook more evenly. So it might just be a case of putting less batter on and spreading it out a bit. Or it might be that I need to cook them for longer. But yeah, you can see, I don't know, let's have a look and see if you can see. But yeah, there's a kind of gooey, gummy layer in there. It is cooked, but it's not delicious. See what happens if we try and make a really thin one. So I put the batter on there like that, and then actually as this one's cooling down, it is actually setting, so I think that gooiness might have just been the rice flour, maybe the banana as well, maybe there's just a different set of expectations. Yeah, actually that's almost continuing to cook. Much better now. Yeah, I think they just need to stand. Thinner is definitely better. Okay, well there we go, that's my pancakes. Later attempts are better than earlier ones. I think spreading it thinner worked better than thicker. Not altogether successful though. They just don't seem to brown. Doesn't matter how long you cook them, that's as brown as they get. Really weird. You'd think it would just continue toasting, but that's as far as it goes. Anyway, I'm just going to let these cool a little bit, and then I'm going to eat this standing up in the kitchen, because while the pan is still dirty, I'm just going to fry something else in that frying pan. I've got left over from yesterday these two weird Swede rosties and one cooked sausage. So I'm going to put these in the frying pan because I want to create a bit of extra browning on them. I want to kind of get it a bit more browned and crispy and caramelised. About 5 grams of lard. And then these pieces of sausage, I'm going to put them in and just give them another little sizzle. Together with those bits of Swede rosti, because this is going to be part of my lunch menu. So breakfast is just going to be a few of these pancakes with some sliced apricots. I'm actually just going to put a bit of apricot inside each pancake like that, and here we go. That's okay. Those definitely need to stand before serving, but yeah, that definitely works. Those two big, thick, floppy pancakes, I'm not going to eat now. That's about 1/5 of my batter mix. So I've obviously taken that out of the stats you've seen on screen. I am going to save those though, because you never know. I might be able to use them as an ingredient in something. Meanwhile, these bits and pieces over here, yeah, they are just getting a little bit of caramelisation now, which is what I was hoping for. Because I have a plan for lunch, but it needs, well, it's supposed to have roast pork in it, but I don't have roast pork, so I'm going to try to crisp up these sausages to get a bit of flavour on them, and also this Swede rosti I think we'll use in there, and if I crisp it up it will have a little bit more sweetness and flavour. Okay, and I think that'll probably do. We've got some nice caramelisation going on these pieces now. Sausages are a little bit more crispy. I'm going to turn that off, let that cool, and then reserve that for ingredients in my lunchtime plan. So one more thing before we go out. This sourdough mix does appear to be alive. I'm pretty sure that that foaming in there is now not just the flour, not just the baking powder in the flour. It smells sour. So I think we've got a working sourdough here, even though I used self-raising flour. So that's interesting. I do think that apple peel helped. So I'm going to be able to make something that relies on yeast and the baking powder in the bread to rise, and I've got the perfect idea. For lunch today, I'm going to try and make some steamed buns. Now, I don't have roast pork to put in here. I've got these sausages and those little toasted bits of rosti. That's going to be my filling for my steamed buns. It's not going to be the entirety of my filling. I've got another plan for that as well, so stand by. So I'm just going to slice these into little kind of diagonal chunks just to try and make them a bit more interesting. That actually smells really good together like that. But anyway, that's going to go into there, especially those little crispy bits, because flavour. Now on its own, obviously that's going to be really dry and uninteresting. However, I've got some of my onion soup left over from yesterday, so I'm going to use that as a kind of sauce to bind everything together. So I've still got about half of that reserved soup left for something else. This soup that I reserved is unseasoned, and it did need a bit more seasoning at the table. So that's my filling, and I reckon there's enough there to fill maybe 3 buns generously, maybe 4. So now we're going to make a dough. 250 grams of flour. If I end up making too much dough, I can always just bake that or save it and bake it as a little bread or something like that. And then into there, oh, that's interesting. My sourdough really does smell quite sour now. So into there, I'm going to put about 40 grams of my sourdough. And I've got some cold water here as well. I'm just going to see how this mixes up, because the recipe I'm following talks about using water. It talks about using milk, which I don't have, and doesn't allow for the moisture that's in the sourdough yeast mix. So I've got to kind of figure all of that out. So I'm just going to wing it until I get a dough that looks like it's going to come together. I don't know how much water that was, but it looks like it was about the right amount. So I'm just going by eye, really. I am going to knead it a little bit just to try to develop some of the gluten, because that holds it all together. I've got to work fairly fast here because the acidity in that sourdough will be starting to activate the baking powder that's incorporated in this self-raising flour. And that's going to start rising straight away. And I'm not going to prove these more than once. And I'm going to divide that into 4 pieces. And we'll roll them out. Okay, moisture around the edge. Filling in the middle. And then gather that together. Bearing in mind this filling will expand as well, so it's possible that this will all just spill out. That's a mess, but hopefully it'll hang together. Right, so 4 buns, and they are actually, I can tell they are rising already. I'm just going to grease some little bits of paper, so probably 1 or 2 grams of lard. And I don't have a bamboo steamer, but what I have is this. So let's see if we can get 2 of these in each basket. Could be a little bit tight. I'm going to put this in a warm place and let those prove for half an hour before I steam them. A warm place in this case to prove these is kind of hanging precariously over the central heating radiator, just right here. What I forgot to do, but I will do now, just brush the tops of those with a bit of water. That will just help the dough to be able to expand a bit as it proves. So those are going to stay there, just teetering on the edge of that windowsill over the warm radiator to prove. Now I need to make more use of these split peas, partly just to get my protein count up. Now there's an interesting thing. So there's a foreign body that you sometimes find in yellow split peas, and it's a green split pea. Oh, it's gone now. Somewhere in there. There we go. That's pretty much the most foreign of bodies I've ever found in split peas, is the wrong kind of pea. So I'm going to cook 100 grams of these, 104, in the slow cooker, just ready to have as a standby ingredient. So peas into the slow cooker, which I will season with some of my Marmite stock, let's say about half of what I've got left. Water to cover, probably about twice the volume of water to peas, and I'll just put that on to cook. Well, these have been proving in a warm place for half an hour, and not really very much change has occurred, so I have a feeling this recipe could be a disaster. But I think if I leave it any longer, the baking powder is just going to lose its potency, So let's get those on the steamer and see what happens. Water's nicely boiling, so on we go, and I'll steam those for at least 10 minutes. Well, all may not be completely lost, because looking in there now, they have actually risen quite a lot in the steam. I suspect that's mostly the baking powder. I don't really think that sourdough yeast had much time to work, and I couldn't give it much time. You see, the trouble is with mixing sourdough and self-raising flour is the acidity of the sourdough will tend to activate the baking powder in the flour, and so you lose one effect or the other. Anyway, it does seem to be kind of working, so I'm going to keep going, and hopefully we'll have some kind of steamed buns. Okay, those have had 10 minutes, and they're actually looking really promising. What I'm going to do now is just swap over those two baskets so that they both get a kind of fair steaming from the hot water. The top basket tends to steam a little bit more gently than the bottom one, so we'll just swap them around, and then another 10 minutes I think, and we're done. Well, to my slight amazement, that seems to have worked. Now, I'm just going to leave those to dry out a little bit here because they were a little bit sticky on the surface. So I'm just going to leave them on this rack steaming to let the surface moisture leave them. They smell all right. Do you know what? I'm going to say that despite having almost none of the right ingredients, these have come out really rather good. They feel nice and light and springy. And yeah, I'm happy with that. I'm going to take a couple of these with me and we'll eat lunch somewhere out in the world. So here's something you could have foraged. I think we're going to find this is lemon balm. It might not be. Let me just sniff one of the leaves. No, it's not. It's a dead nettle of some sort. So even so, still edible. Don't know, probably red dead nettle, but or maybe wood sage or something like that. But not a nettle. Looks like a stinging nettle, but that's actually something in the mint family, but not very fragrant. So maybe not. And again, you really can't forage these because they belong to Her Majesty the Queen. So in terms of foraging, fishing would be an option in some places, although I think in this bit of the river here you need a license. This is not tidal, so there are probably some regulations here. It might be posted on this lamppost here. Let's have a look. Yeah, so I would need a license to fish here because it's not tidal, it's a freshwater stream. A bit further down where we're going, it turns into a tidal river, and regulations there are a little bit more relaxed. You don't know what to do with them, do you? So ducks don't belong to the Queen, but I don't think you'd be allowed to hunt them without some kind of license. Right, so let's have a look at these steamed buns then. So, that's a cat noise even. Really good, nice and fluffy inside. Could maybe have done with a bit more of that onion soup in there as a sauce, but they taste fantastic. 2 of these for my lunch, and then the other 2 I'll save for lunch tomorrow, I think. So this is a place called Wood Mill, one of the worst places to actually drive through. Weird traffic system there. So this would have actually been the mill pond here, and it's the end of the non-tidal part of the river. In a minute we'll have a look at the tidal part. So an abrupt and significant change in level of the water, and there's the mill race. Obviously it's not a working water mill anymore, I don't think, but this part down here is now the tidal itching, and it looks like the tide is out. So this part here and downstream of here, no license required to fish in it. Still some rules about what you can and can't take home, I think, probably because endangered species and things like that. But this part here you can fish in without a license in general. So in the sense that fishing could be foraging, there's something you could have foraged. There'd be sea trout in there, grey mullet, maybe sea bass if the tide is high. So yeah, you can see this is a saline environment here because there's seaweed down there on the shore. The tide must be out.
So yeah, I imagine in the summertime you get kids crabbing off of that little jetty down there. And shore crabs, all you need is a bit of string and a piece of bacon rind or something like that, and you can catch shore crabs with a bit of string. Shore crabs are quite edible, no meat on them to talk of, but they can be used to make soup, a lot of flavour in them. So shore crabs, something you could have foraged. This is an example of bramble buds that I talked about the other day, and these little buds here, this is obviously a slightly more favoured microclimate. And yeah, so all of these little sprouts of bramble bud here, you can just pick them off and chew them and eat them. They've got an interesting taste. They kind of interesting sort of herbal taste that as you chew them turns sweet all of a sudden. Quite a lot of the sort of foraging type of people enjoy having a little nibble on those if they're out in the woods. So that's something I could have foraged. Not much food value in it.
Right, well, I'm not kidding. That might well be the best thing I've made this week. They were really delicious and just the right kind of chewy and fluffy inside. The other two of those I'm going to put in the fridge, and I might have them for breakfast actually. Dinner, I'm going to have a big old stir fry. So I've prepared some vegetables here, which is swede, carrot, cabbage and onions. I've cut them into kind of matchsticks, and I've kind of arranged them in the order that I think they're going to need to go into the pan to be cooked. But there's something else I've got to prepare first, which is these sausages. So these are the ones I left in the fridge to thaw out, and so they're now completely thawed. I'm going to mix in with this sausage meat my teaspoonful of chili flakes. So I'm just going to get them out the skins, and this is where we're going to see how good this sausage meat really is. And these sausage skins are beef collagen, so I'll put them in the stock box. They might do something to the stock. So that's the sausage meat, and I'm allowed 1 teaspoon. Oh, that's stupid. So let me just make sure I'm not going over the top. There we go. That's my 1 teaspoonful of chili flakes. I'm going to blend that into this sausage meat. Yeah, this is where we kind of see where it shows its true colours. I want to blend it in as evenly as I can because I don't want really any pockets of fiery chili and then some bits being non-seasoned. So I'll just spend some time massaging that into the sausage meat. Wow, that didn't go very far. Never mind. Nearly everything I do today is going to be in this big pan here. I'm just going to squish that down. I'll try and get it into a thin layer before I turn the heat on. Now I'll get the heat under that and fry that until it really kind of crisps up. Not cooked on one side. Well, cooked a little bit on one side. Let's see if it's got enough coherence to flip over. Oh, that actually looks all right. The advantage of squishing that thin like that is it's cooked really quickly. That's now actually fully cooked, and that only took about 7 minutes. So I'm going to take that out of the pan now and get the vegetables in there. Starting with swede and carrot. Well, and the onion, I think. The green cabbage is going to go in a bit later. So I'm going to stir fry that in the residual oil from the sausages, which has got a little bit of flavour from that chilli, which is good. Alright, we've got some colour happening on those vegetables there now. So the cabbage can go in. And I am going to actually fry this cabbage to the point where it's got some little bits of toasty edges, because fried cabbage is really tasty. And this unpromising looking bowl of stuff here is the peas I cooked earlier. This is peas cooked in Marmite stock. I'm going to drain about half of those and I'll add them to the rice I'm cooking. That cabbage, you can see it's gone a little bit crispy on the edges, and that's exactly what I was hoping for. Time to get a sauce in there now. And my sauce is my remaining onion soup, plus a little bit of water. I'm going to get that into the serving dish, and then I'm going to cook the rice. Just a little bit of fat in there to help fry this rice, probably 10 grams of lard. And then 250 grams of that rice that I cooked night before last, I think it was. And then in with those cooked peas. Might seem like a bit of an odd ingredient, because it is. Quite a lot of food here, so that's good. I might have some leftovers and I might just save myself a midnight snack. That's a good portion of rice. It's a very generous portion of rice and peas there, but I am hungry. And then stir-fry vegetables. And the weird sausage stuff with chilli. There's a little bit of stir-fried veg left if I get peckish later in the evening. So that's dinner. Let's get that to the table, see what it tastes like. All right then. Well, there's a mountain of food here. Let's taste the pieces individually. So this is the rice with the Marmite peas. The Marmite actually isn't there so much as a flavour on its own. It really brings out the flavour of those split peas. It's nice. The sausage with chilli. I could have done with some more chilli in there. Definitely improvement though. Stir-fry vegetables with onion sauce. Oh, that's good. And there's a little bit of the chilli that came out with the oil that the vegetables were cooked in. So this is actually the vegetables here. I've got a little bit of chilli fire to them, which is good. And swede might seem like a really weird thing to put in a stir-fry, but it's what I've got. And if you think about it, what's a swede? It's a turnip. What's a turnip? It's a big radish. So let's put that all together now. Bit of meat, bit of veg, bit of rice. It works. It doesn't taste like anything I've eaten before. It doesn't taste like, you know, Chinese takeaway or anything like that. It's very strange flavours, especially the Marmite peas. That is weird but nice. This isn't going to be my favourite meal because it is just a bit weird, and there's lots of things you could have done if you'd had the spices from the cupboard or sauces or whatever to add to this. So there's lots of ways this could be improved. It's not going to be my favourite meal of the lot, but it's actually really tasty. There's actually no shortage of flavour here, and it's really filling and hearty. So yeah, verdict on this one, weird but tasty. Wow, that was a huge meal. I'm really full up now. And yeah, weird but tasty is the verdict on that. Now that's the end of day 4. Daily totals on the screen now. I've actually got more ingredients and ideas for day 5 than I've got time and space to do. So I've got to decide what I want to do with the rest of my ingredients. I'm going to have some stuff left over from this, and I've got to decide what recipes I want to do. I am going to eat the other 2 of those steamed buns, which means one of the meals is going to be kind of the same as today's. The other 2 meals, I've got to figure out what I want to do with the ingredients I've got left. I've still got my tablespoon of curry paste, so I think there's going to be a curry in there tomorrow. Anyway, that's the end of day 4. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon for day 5.